Welcome to the Boxing Gossip channel. Please hit subscribe if you haven't done so before. At the time of recording, it's Sunday morning, the Sunday morning after Vasyl Lomachenko versus Guillermo Rigondeaux. For those who don't know, and I can't imagine there's too many of you who don't know, Vasyl Lomachenko wins the fight by stoppage, with Rigondeaux electing to retire on his stool after the 6th round. Look, when you do a YouTube channel like this, you have to live by the sword, you have to die by the sword. Long-time subscribers will know I've made a few pretty woeful predictions on this channel in my time. I've got just as many wrong as I've got right. I've got some high-profile ones wrong, and I've been slated for it. So when I get one right, I'm going to try and take a little bit of credit for it. You know, I call this fight, I was quite happy with my prediction. I did pick Vasyl Lomachenko to win the fight by stoppage. And let me say, this is the 4th opponent in a row that Vasyl Lomachenko has beaten by that opponent retiring mid-fight. So, you look at Vasyl Lomachenko, he's had 10 wins in his professional career to date. 8 of them are listed as knockouts or stoppages, however you want to phrase it. That's kind of the record of quite a big puncher. That's kind of the record of a relatively big knockout artist. 10 wins, 8 of them coming by stoppage, especially when you consider the high level of opposition that Lomachenko's been in with. But what he is doing is not icing these guys. He's not knocking them out and starching them with massive one-punch hitting power. He's breaking them down. He's breaking their will. He's picking them apart, he's ruining them over the course of several rounds and making it clear in their heads that they have no answer, that they have no way of beating this guy. And for me, in a way, that's almost more impressive than just having the power to get someone out of there with a single punch. Lomachenko really is a fighter at the top of his game. Rigondeaux was outmatched last night. He was outmatched on a number of fronts. In my pre-fight video, one of the things I talked about constantly was volume. Another thing I talked about was speed. The visual impact from a judging perspective of seeing Lomachenko, the far bigger man, throwing a dramatic amount of volume on Guillermo Rigondeaux, and the speed with which he was doing it, tripling up punches, quadrupling up punches, seeing him throw triple uppercuts from the same hand. The visual impact of a guy with such a hand speed advantage, with such a size advantage, walking down a smaller man, landing that, gave you no misunderstanding that this was anything but a one-sided fight. Rigondeaux didn't really have too much to offer in terms of winning this fight. He took on canny defensive positions. He, used angles that would have found out lesser fighters. A lot of the time he looked to get low, he looked to dip, he looked to, crouch on the inside, but Lomachenko just had an angle for every question that was posed at him. Lomachenko's subtle but swift pivoting of the feet to create a new angle, and then a real arsenal of punches meant that even when Rigondeaux was crouching low and leaning back, he was getting peppered with punches. You'd see Lomachenko do a swift pivot, throw a hook down low, bring a straight punch over the top when Rigondeaux rose. It was really, really, really impressive stuff from Vasyl Lomachenko. And from about the 2nd or 3rd round, the writing was on the wall. And I was pretty confident from round 2 or 3 that this was not a fight that was going to go the distance. Rigondeaux didn't really seem to have an answer. At no point, people talked about him being the bigger puncher in this fight. I kind of find that hard to see. I know people don't like talking about size, but it looked like a man versus a boy in there in terms of size. And Rigondeaux was so low volume, and when he did throw punches, Lomachenko was so defensively adept, you kind of could only really see this fight going one way. And, Rigondeaux, we have to call it what it is. He quit on his stool at the end of round 6. Now, Rigondeaux is alleging some sort of hand injury. Whether or not that's the case, is anyone's guess. I didn't really see him throwing too many power punches with that hand, so it's hard to see where he maybe injured it. But this is boxing, these sort of things do happen. But what I will say is, from my perspective, absolutely, no coincidence that this is the fourth opponent on the trot who has retired against Lomachenko. And I think Lomachenko said after the fight he was going to change his name to Lomachenko, a famous reference to the Roberto Duran no mas incident. And he also put out a Twitter of his team after the fight saying Team No Mas. So it was a very, very dominant performance from Vasyl Lomachenko, and he deserves an immense amount of credit for it. He looked calm, he looked composed, he looked explosive, fast. He's got one of the best punch varieties and best arsenal of different punches in the game, and he made Rigondeaux, for me, look slow, look out of ideas, and I thought he showed a different class actually to Rigondeaux in terms of technique. With regards to Rigo, where does he go from here? It's difficult from him. He's 37 years old. If rumours in the boxing media are to be believed, he got a pretty average payday last night. It's been widely reported that the fight was on a 75-25 split in Lomachenko's favour, and that Rigondeaux, if he were to receive $400,000, which is the amount that's been reported, after he's paid his taxes, his cornerman, that's not an amount of money he's going to be able to retire on. And it's kind of hard to know if he's earned the big bucks in his career to date. So maybe he will keep fighting. Maybe he'll drop down back to his natural weight class, whether that's bantamweight or super bantamweight, where he's been campaigning. And perhaps one or two of the bigger names in those divisions will be inclined to fight Rigondeaux now, because they can see that, how beatable he is to the right opponent. It's hard for Rigondeaux though. The sands of time are against him. He's not going to be getting better. He's 37 and injured, so it's probably going to be a little bit of time before he's back in the ring. And as I said in my pre-fight video, it's actually hard to know where Rigondeaux's at, because the last time he fought an elite level opponent was Benito Donaire all those years ago. So very, very possible that he's been slipping ever since that fight, but it's never been seen, never been visible, never been exposed, because he just hasn't fought the right level of opposition to bring that to the forefront. Where will Rigo go? The problem for him is that bantam and super bantamweight, there aren't the names that there used to be. You used to have guys like Carl Frampton, Scott Quigg, Leo Santa Cruz in those divisions, guys who could make big fights and provide big paydays, but those guys just aren't there anymore. They've stepped up to their own weight classes, and the names at bantam and super bantamweight right now are not the sort of superstar names that are going to lead Rigondeaux to big paydays. So it's kind of a sad position Rigo finds himself in. I know a lot of people have a lot of sympathy for him, because he's been ducked throughout his entire career. Despite his talent, he hasn't been able to get the big fights because his style is unappealing, and he's never equated to the right risk reward for promoters to put their big name fighters in with him. And I feel that, but on this occasion, he's been done over by Lomachenko, and I'm going to say, and this may be a controversial comment, clearly factors in this fight were against Rigondeaux. Clearly his age was against him, clearly his size was against him, but I actually just think Lomachenko seemed to be the better fighter. Taking that out, obviously it's hard to know. You can't really, in a mythical world, shrink Lomachenko down to the same size and age him a few years. Lomachenko just seemed to have a lot more for me, and I always kind of felt, and I've said this on multiple videos before for new subscribers, I always kind of felt that Rigondeaux's style being so slow volume and so sniperish, I always felt that someone with a huge volume and speed, and someone who was really going to bring a pace, combining that with technique and structured defence, could cause him real problems. And I think Lomachenko's done that tonight. Where does Lomachenko go from here? I personally still have an urge to see that Salido rematch. I understand Salido is now pretty ancient. I understand he took a loss to Miguel Roman last night. And I understand that rematch has lost something. But I think there's still merit in having that fight for me. Also, there's lots of talk about Lomachenko versus Mikey Garcia. I think that's a tough ask. We have weight classes in this sport for a reason. It was quite an unappealing aesthetic for me to see these two guys in the ring together last night with the size difference. It was a freak size difference, and I think we're going to see something similar if Lomachenko fights Mikey Garcia. Mikey Garcia's been up at 140 pounds. He's talked about fighting at 147. You look at him next to Adrien Broner. Adrien Broner's a guy who's been in bigger weight divisions as well, welterweight, maybe even above welterweight, certainly outside the ring. Mikey Garcia is a big guy. He's a big guy. Lomachenko's got all the skills, he's got all the smarts, but as I say, we have weight classes in this sport for a reason. I appreciate that would be probably a lightweight fight, but I do think that's a fight where it would be, for me, I would lean to Garcia based on size, effectively. And it's kind of a shame that a lot of these fights are being picked based on size rather than anything else. But yeah, Vasyl Lomachenko deserves a huge amount of credit. Look, in terms of pound for pound, it's kind of hard to evaluate this fight because Rigondeaux, who hasn't fought an elite level opponent for so many years, who's been so inactive, who's in so many weight classes below, it's kind of hard to work out how substantive that form is. What I would say is that for me, pound for pound number one is a toss-up between Lomachenko and Terence Crawford, two of the top fighters in the sport, two guys amassing great resumes, two guys with all the skills that you could possibly want. For Vasyl Lomachenko, he's only 29. There's big fights ahead of him. There's big paydays ahead of him. I, for one, will be watching that career with great interest. He's answered the question here conclusively. I think a lot of people who were saying, I had a lot of people on my channel saying, no way is Rigondeaux going to get beat, or no way is Rigondeaux going to get stopped. A lot of people have to wake up and see that the sport of boxing, just because someone's slick, just because someone's stylish when they do throw punches, there's a lot of other factors to consider. Anyway, that's my thoughts. I don't want to ramble on too long right now. I may watch the fight again and then discuss it further later on in the week. But my initial thoughts are that Lomachenko has done a proper job on Rigondeaux. He's outgunned him in a number of areas: volume, speed, size, and essentially tactics. I think that Rigondeaux has been out of ideas. I think he's been trying to spoil, trying to hold, trying to clumsy his way through the fight. But Lomachenko just hasn't really allowed the fight to descend to that level. He's used footwork, he's varied up his punch variety, he's found different angles, and he's cracked the puzzle that is Guillermo Rigondeaux. That's my thoughts, guys. If you've enjoyed this video, please hit the thumbs up button. If you're new, haven't done so before, do subscribe. You can give me a follow on Twitter @BoxingGossip. As always, many thanks for tuning in.